Miami remains a team, I think, most motivated, that has enough assets to eventually perhaps outbid the market. The problem is, listen, Portland looks at what Miami has, doesn't love it, and keeps hoping something better is going to come along. It may or may not.
Looks like the Portland puppet is coming around.
Then you do this, then this, and this.
So yesterday, we got Dame to Miami reports from both Shams and Woj. What does this mean? Well, these reports coinciding with Jaime Jaquez Jr. officially being trade eligible as of yesterday could mean that maybe Portland is willing to negotiate, because last we heard, Portland has kind of been unwilling to pick up the phone to Miami. Barry Jackson had another report that stated that same thing yesterday, but there was another report that said Portland was actually interested in Jaime Jaquez Jr. prior to the draft. So maybe he's a piece that they were kind of waiting to become available before they decided to talk with Miami, even though they technically could have verbally agreed to a trade before. But anyways, I get into all that in yesterday's video. I kind of talk about how I think Jaime would be a great fit on Portland, but also in Miami. So I kind of go into detail in that whole situation. So check out yesterday's video if you want to hear more on that. But I do want to note something else that Woj said in his report yesterday.
Lillard doesn't have that leverage because he has 4 years, over $175 million left on his contract. And that's part of what I think is holding up the trade market. That's part of why there is perhaps not the feeding frenzy people thought there might be for a Damian Lillard trade. It is not because teams think that if we traded for Damian Lillard, he wouldn't play hard for us. He'd be too unhappy here. It wouldn't make for a good enough environment for us to take him on. That has not been the issue with teams. It has simply been the idea, I think for a lot of teams, his age and the idea of paying him over $60 million at 35 and 36 years old, the last 2 years of his deal.
Now, this is something that I've been mentioning a lot. So I'm glad to finally have Woj on my side so I can cite him when I get some passionate Portland fans in my comments, which I do appreciate y'all, by the way. I don't want to alienate the Portland fans. I mean, y'all got passion for your team just like I got passion for mine. I'm sure you love Damian Lillard and everything he's brought to the city. I mean, I know I was a big fan of him just as a Heat fan, so I can't imagine being an actual Portland fan and seeing everything he's brought to your franchise that has really been kind of cursed since Bill Walton even. I had a shout out to my guy in the comments, something about fast as ducks, something like that. You know who you are. I don't have your name in front of me, but he was a Portland native and kind of detailed all the bad luck Portland's had over the years, from Sam Bowie to Greg Oden to Brandon Roy to all of that stuff. And I get it. I guess I got a lot of sympathy for Portland fans because it reminds me what it's like being a Dolphin fan, another cursed franchise. But anyways, my point is, Dame is not a perfect prospect. He's not a 27-year-old LeBron James who's willing to take less money to join the Miami Heat like we saw in 2010. The reality of the situation is Dame is 33 years old. He's getting paid a ton of money for the next 4 years, and it all culminates to when he's 36 or 37 years old and he'll be making $37 million. Now, that's not something Portland's going to want to pay. That's not something Miami is going to even want to pay. So that's certainly not something that another team is going to want to pay, knowing that Dame doesn't want to be there. So he's not the perfect prospect. There is flaws within his contract. Now, if I'm Miami, and certainly as a Heat fan, I still want Dame. And the reason being is that I think adding Dame to Jimmy and Bam, regardless of what the rest of the roster looks like, gives you a guaranteed championship window for at least 2 years. And having a championship window is something a lot of teams would dream of. You got teams like the Kings and Timberwolves who struggle to even make the playoffs and haven't been contenders in 20 plus years. So I don't want to take being a contender for granted. It is something that is very hard to do. You got 30 teams every single year that are trying to win a championship. You got 15 in each conference that's trying to make the finals. Being a championship contender is rare. That's why if there is a move out there that can make you a contender, you have to do it and you suffer the consequences later. I mean, look at the Toronto Raptors. They traded away DeMar DeRozan, one of their greatest players in franchise history, for Kawhi, who left a year later, but they won a ring, so it was worth it. I mean, the Heat will be in salary cap hell in 3 or 4 years. They're paying Jimmy a ton of money when he's 36, so they'll also be paying Dame a ton of money when he's 37. You think that's going to be a good time for Miami when that year comes? No, it probably won't be, because I'm not sure how close to their prime those two players would be. Dame, I think, might age better than Jimmy just because he's obviously more of a jump shooter. Jimmy's a guy that likes to get to the basket and hits the ground every single time he drives. Now, Jimmy's a great mid-range shooter, so maybe he can more adapt to that old man game. We'll see as he gets older. But like I said, we're at least 2 years away from, I think, seeing decline in either one of their games. That's where I find Miami. I do this trade and kind of worry about those other flaws later.
That's why this is dragging out and why it may continue to drag out. The next real deadline is the start of training camp in late September. That's certainly going to be a moment of truth.
So Woj also said that, which I kind of been saying for a while also, even though I kind of got hyped like 4 days ago and said August 1st will be the day Dame is on the team because Jaime Jaquez is trade eligible. Now, obviously today's August 1st, and unless Dame gets traded within the next hour or two, I was wrong. Now, maybe this video jinxes it. Maybe I did all this work, edit and record and upload just for Dame to be here an hour later, and I'll take it. I'll suffer that sacrifice to get Dame on the team, but if he's not here today, then I do think it could be closer towards training camp because there really is no incentive for either side to get it done before training camp because Portland can kind of, portray it to their fans that, hey, we're still out there looking for the best deal. And until training camp, they don't have a lot of that negative attention and they don't have all the media in their house asking the young guys about Dame and all that unwanted attention. They won't really have that until training camp. And from Miami side, I mean, you're obviously just kind of chilling now. Jimmy's over in like Tawan. Duncan Robinson's over somewhere in Asia too. They treating him like he's Michael Jordan over there. He's living life. He may be over there pretty soon. Now, he's still got a lot of years left on his deal. He'll still be in the league. Ain't nobody waiving that because they don't want that dead money on the cap. But anyways, this is not a Duncan Robinson slander video. But if you're Miami, you certainly want him on the team prior to training camp because I think that practice time with the whole squad is very valuable. You rarely see a mid-season trade where a star is traded and they win a championship that year just because that team missed out on all of a training camp. They missed out on all that practice, which I do think is very critical in having long-term success. So I do want to get into this Shams news from yesterday in which he said,
and I'm told the Heat have been preparing a trade package around 3 to 4 first-round draft picks, potential draft swaps, as well as second-round picks, a young player potentially. We see right there what a framework of a deal could look like.
Now, honestly, I don't really think this is news. It's more of just the obvious in my opinion. And I don't necessarily think Shams meant this to be an official report, but Twitter kind of took it and ran wild, which is stupid. All Shams said is 3 or 4 picks, maybe a couple swaps, maybe Tyler to some third team. I don't really know. He really didn't say anything, but that is sort of the general framework that I think we will see in a deal for Lillard. So my question to Blazers fans, is this enough for y'all? And if it's not, do you think there's another offer out there? I mean, that's just the truth of the situation. For all the reasons that Woj mentioned earlier, and Portland fans might say, oh, now that Dame said he's willing to play for another team if he's traded there, that can make a difference. I don't really think so. I think that's just something Dame kind of had to say because of that NBA memo that was sent out. But regardless, Woj said, and I agree, it doesn't seem like there's no other offers because of Dame's hard request to join the Heat. It seems like there's no other offers because of that massive contract like I was talking about earlier. So I understand as a Portland fan, you may not think this is fair value for Dame, which is fine. That is a fair point. I will not disagree with you there. But is there another offer out there? That's kind of the point that I've been kind of wanting to tell Portland fans that have been in my comments. So I did put this trade together yesterday when Jaime Jaquez was officially became trade eligible. And basically I have Miami getting Dame and they do that inevitable trade with OKC to unlock that extra first round pick, which they sent to the Blazers. So now the Blazers will now get Kyle Lowry's expiring contract, Duncan Robinson, the 2 young guys, and 3 first round picks. Kyle Lowry, expiring deal, not that big a deal. Well, it's a big deal, but it's not that big a deal for them because he'll be gone in the year. You know what I'm saying? And I do think he could be a great mentor to Scoot for a year. So that is a plus. Of course, Duncan Robinson is not a good contract. If you already commented saying, we don't want Duncan Robinson, I get you. I agree with you there. with his contract, he's typically a guy that you'd have to attach a first-round pick to get rid of. And in this case, Miami's only sending 3 first-round picks, but they are sending both young guys. So maybe you look at one of the 2 young guys as sort of a sweetener to take on that Duncan Robinson contract, because a lot of Heat fans are saying they wouldn't want to give up both young guys. Now, personally, I'm not sure if Miami will have to. Again, it depends if another team offers. Depends how stubborn the Trailblazers front office wants to be, or I guess in a nicer way, how quickly they want to move on from the situation. It depends. But as a Heat fan, I would be willing to give up both of those young guys for the same reasons I said earlier. You get a championship contention window now. Kyle Lowry sucked last year. Duncan Robinson had a great playoff run, but he barely played in the regular season. Obviously, Jaime wasn't there, and Jovic played like 15 games. So you're really not losing any critical pieces in this trade that contributed last year. So I think adding Dame for these pieces makes Miami a contender. I know you lost Gabe. I know you lost Max, but you brought in Josh Richardson, Thomas Bryant, and they will bring in some other guys. Maybe Goran Dragic, maybe Christian Wood. I think there's still guys out there that they can fill out the roster around Dame, Jimmy, and Bam that will make them a contender. That's why I would do this trade. Now, I do want to shout out this Hot Take Harry trade. If y'all don't know Hot Take Harry, you must not be on Twitter, or maybe you're not a Heat fan. Because if you are a Heat fan on Twitter, you know my guy. I actually made his profile picture, by the way. Fun fact. So shout out Hot Take Harry. He made this trade and put it on Twitter. Basically said this is kind of what a deal could somewhat look like. So essentially he said, oh, I lost the trade. I got to pull it up in my book. Here we go. So essentially he said that he would be getting Damian Lillard, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Alec Burks. And they would do that trade with OKC, which, by the way, he doesn't have Miami sending OKC a second. I think they would kind of have to incentivize OKC to do this. Maybe he has them removing some protections or something, but this is what Miami would be getting. Obviously, you get Dame. Dinwiddie and Burks are 2 guys that I think can contribute. Miami obviously would need some more guard depth after losing Strus and Gabe. And Alec Burks, he's the 2K GOAT. If y'all watch Kenny Beecham, then you know. He has the Trailblazers getting Kyle Lowry, James Wiseman, a nice, young project still. He went to Detroit. They were kind of hoping they can turn the former 2nd overall pick into something. They haven't. Maybe Portland can, and Portland's tired of getting guards, so they finally get a young big man. He has him getting Jaime, a 2nd-round pick, and 3 first-round picks. One of them from the Nets because we send them Tyler Herro. And then he has the Pistons getting Duncan Robinson, accepting a first-round pick to incentivize them. And then obviously the rest is the OKC part. So I do like this trade. I do think it's something that we could see around this sort of framework. Now, Harry is wild with the trade machine all the time, and that's what I love about him. So he cooked up this massive 5-teamer. But just to give you guys an idea of kind of what a trade can look like. So I want to talk to the Portland fans again. Do y'all think this is a fair trade for Dame? I understand you may be saying, hey, we're trading the greatest player in our franchise history for 3 first-round picks and old-ass Lowry or Wiseman, who's a bust, and Jaime Jaquez, who's done nothing, and he was a mid-first-round pick. Yeah, on paper, that's not a fair trade for one of the greatest players of all time and maybe the greatest player in Blazers history. But that's why I just want to specify, not a lot of other offers out there. I've said it time and time again, and it's nice to hear that Woj, who's kind of been, a mouthpiece for Portland this whole time. I had a whole video on that if y'all want to check that out too. But it's nice to hear that he's starting to come around too and starting to say these things, which is why I think it is a sign that the wheels could start to be in motion sooner rather than later. Personally, I would give up more, by the way. Like I said, I pretty much would give up anything outside of Jimmy and Bam to get Dame. I'd like to keep Caleb just because I think he's a win-now player. We saw that in the playoffs last year. But at the end of the day, this is what you got to do to get stars. And a lot of Portland fans might be saying, hey, we'll do this trade. Just tell Pat Riley to stop being cheap. That's an assumption that he's being cheap. Personally, I don't think he is. Just if you look at the history of Pat Riley, he's always been about getting the killer whale. That was kind of his big thing. When you look at when they acquired Shaq, he didn't want to give up Caron Butler, but he ended up giving in. He gave away Caron, he gave away Eddie Jones, he gave away Lamar Odom. He did what needed to be done to get a star because he realizes that you win championships with the best of the best. Now, of course, he was able to keep Dwayne Wade, and in this case, you'd obviously keep Bam. That's kind of the comparison I would look at there. But I don't think Pat's being cheap. I think he would be willing to give up an offer similar to these, and if not more, and that is something that I would also be willing to do. Now, if you're a Blazer fan and you're not willing to do this, I guess you're either hoping for one of three things. One, you bring Dame into the season and you kind of hope that he changes his mind and decides to play. Maybe scoots it at an all-star level. Maybe the team gets off to a hot start and Dame says, hey, maybe we can make some noise here. So he decides to play. Maybe you hope that Dame decides to open up his list to join another team. Maybe he sees the Boston Celtics off to a historic start and says, you know what? I will play for Boston. Even though I don't think that's possible now after the Brown extension. But maybe he opens up his list to some other team. Or the third option is that maybe another team, like let's say the Brooklyn Nets, Mikal Bridges goes off and Dorian Finney-Smith is shooting 60% from three, and they're like a second seed in the East, right? And they say, man, if we threw all of our first-round picks that we got for the Kyrie and KD trades, if we threw them all at Portland to get Dame, we could win a championship this year. And then maybe they take the gamble, and then they go get Dame. Now, we don't know if Dame would sit out or not. There's been reports saying he would, but obviously he'd get fined if he didn't. So who knows if he would sit out or not. But regardless, maybe another team makes a swing for Dame mid-season if they think he can put them over the top. So if you're a Portland fan, if these are the trade packages, do you kind of bank on one of those three scenarios? Because truthfully, I don't think those are that likely either. Damian Lillard didn't make this decision to be traded overnight, right? We all know how badly he wanted to win in Portland. He's been there for 11 years and stuck it and literally stayed by their side through thick and through thin. And I don't think I think it takes something super major just for him to change his mind about all of that. And I don't think anything major is really realistic, to tell you the truth. But that's all I got for this video. So let me know what y'all agree with or disagree with down in the comments below. But if you could at least leave a like, I greatly appreciate it, because I'm working hard over here and it pushes the algorithm out to all these people and helps other people see it, which is really, really greatly appreciated by me. But that's all I got for this video. So I'll see y'all next time.
Started with the pro, you already know. Bye, 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 that's my baby goal. Give and get buckets, that's quid pro quo. Watch you on the top 10 list, mojo. You too can shoot from the logo. I be seeing you cook, putting dudes in the blender, then leaving them shook. As you only getting better, I'll be praying for defenders, and I calling you a Kindle, cause you like the book.